coverage you can count on. KOMU 8 News starts now.
Tonight we got a first look at when Columbia Public School students could be phased back in person. This CPS tracker has been below the threshold for online learning. Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Spain. Thanks for joining us tonight. Today, KOMU 8's Alex Engel learned the district's youngest students could be back in just a couple weeks.
CPS students could soon be trading in their devices for a classroom. This comes after the school board discussed reopening plans at their special session today. Superintendent Peter Stiepelman presented a 4-day-a-week in-person option. This would be a phased approach where the youngest kids would start first.
Prioritize the lower grades for all day in person.
That's why elementary kids would start this month, with the middle school the next month, and high school students starting in January. Stiepelman is recommending 4 days a week instead of the hybrid to provide a more complete education while in person. The CPS case rate tracker has been below the threshold for full online learning since September 21st. The school board will vote on these options at their meeting next week. Whichever one they choose, the board said they will stick with it for the rest of the semester. Alex Engel, KOMU 8 News, Columbia.
As CPS continues plans to reopen, some other mid-Missouri schools are reporting COVID-19 cases in their buildings. Today, Fulton Public Schools reported 2 active cases within the district, forcing dozens to quarantine. 76 students and staff are currently in quarantine. The district is still holding sports and activities, but only preferred personnel like participants and coaches are allowed the events. Moberly School District also announced 3 positive virus cases. 45 students and staff members have been identified as close contacts and are quarantining. Turning now to your latest COVID-19 numbers in mid-Missouri. Boone County recorded 33 new cases today, bringing the total number of cases to 279 active. Audrain County reported 13 new cases for a total of 201 active, and Callaway County recorded 27 since their last update on Friday, making 101 currently active. Statewide, there were nearly 1,200 new cases today. As you can see from this graph from the New York Times, the number of new cases is on a slight downward trend. DHSS did report 26 new deaths since yesterday. While the numbers seem to have peaked just a few weeks ago, new death numbers are also on a steep decline. Contact tracers in Miller County say they're having communication issues. A recent post on the county health department's Facebook page talked all about it. Health officials say there are times where tracers are trying to release someone from isolation, but don't get a return phone call. When someone doesn't call back, patients have to stay in isolation for longer than the 10-day requirement.
We've had several cases who we've had to isolate longer than needed because they wouldn't return our phone calls or because we couldn't get in contact with them. So people who should have been released on Friday now have to wait until Monday to be released or things like that because we just can't get a hold of them.
Hood says not answering or calling back can also affect the number of active cases for the county. If tracers can't get a hold of somebody to release them, they may be considered active for longer than they should. While COVID hospitalizations in Boone County are not at a record high like they were last week, hospitalizations are a trend health officials are watching closely. A majority of these hospitalizations are not Boone County residents. MU Healthcare serves about 25 counties or around 750,000 potential patients. Due to the pandemic, many members of surrounding counties rely on MU Healthcare for COVID treatment. MU Healthcare says they are prepared to accommodate more hospitalizations if needed, but still need to take measures to prevent it.
Ultimately, what matters is that we prevent a surge of patients who are critically ill that limit our ability to and our capacity of our institutions.
Columbia City Council voted to extend Boone County's public health order to October 20th to provide an incubation period before lifting restrictions. The public health order will be extended further if needed.
Well, a record-breaking Atlantic hurricane season continues here. We now have Hurricane Delta. It's a Category 4 hurricane. It was just a tropical storm yesterday. It's gone through rapid intensification. It's likely going to hit the Yucatan Peninsula within the next few hours overnight tonight and then continue on into the Gulf, eventually staying pretty strong as it heads towards Louisiana. And that's going to likely make landfall as the 10th named storm this season. That's going to be on Friday night into early Saturday morning. And we do have a Columbia connection. Let me bring in sports director Ben Arnett. Ben, where's the connection here for Mizzou?
The connection is a football game that was supposed to be on Saturday. A university source tells me that the game between Missouri and LSU will be moved from Baton Rouge to Faurot Field here in Columbia with a kickoff time of 11 a.m. A Mizzou athletic spokesperson told me earlier today that the athletic department has already begun preparing to host the game. LSU is the 17th ranked team in the country, the defending national champions, coming off a win over Vanderbilt on Saturday. The Southeastern Conference will reportedly update the status of the game with a press release Wednesday morning. It's expected the conference will confirm the new game site and start time. Kenton?
Well, and assuming that is starting at 11 a.m. there, Ben, it's going to be a pretty nice one. We're looking at 72 for kickoff, then 80 in the afternoon. Mostly sunny throughout the day, but it's going to be a very warm one for us, certainly much different than Louisiana will be on Saturday. I'll also tell you how close that rain's going to get to us in Missouri as that tropical system continues up north inland. That's coming up. Emily.
Okay, thanks, Kenton. An update now for you to a murder mystery that happened along I-70 in mid-Missouri. There's now a $50,000 reward in the Melissa Pesky homicide case. The South Dakota mother of two was shot and killed with her children in the back seat while driving on I-70 one night back in 2018. In September of 2019, Pesky's family offered a $10,000 reward for any information. Today, the family told KOMU8 an anonymous donor came forward and donated $40,000 toward that reward. Pesky's sister says this donation makes her more excited, anxious, and ready for this to be over.
Hope to begin with, even before we did the first reward, but now with it increased, I'm a little bit more excited that hopefully it will result in an arrest.
She also says that the $50,000 reward is good until the 2-year anniversary of Pesky's death on December 13th. Now to another update for you. A St. Louis couple is now indicted for tampering with evidence and exhibiting a weapon. The couple made headlines for holding guns on their porch as protesters passed by this summer. City attorneys refused to charge 9 protesters who were ticketed for trespassing at their house. Governor Parson has said he would pardon that couple, the McCloskeys, if convicted. We're getting our first look inside Kingsbury Hall at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. That's where Mike Pence and Kamala Harris will face off tomorrow night. Crews are busy with final preparations before the first and only vice presidential debate. That includes putting up plexiglass barriers on the podiums, as well as moving the podiums to be more than 12 feet apart instead of 7. Once on stage, neither candidate will wear a face mask. The debate will be an hour and a half long and starts at 8 p.m. You can watch that right here on KOMU8. The 2 vice presidential candidates both tested negative for the coronavirus ahead of the debate. The White House says Pence was tested tonight in Salt Lake City, and Senator Harris says her negative result came yesterday. Both candidates will undergo another coronavirus test before the debate tomorrow. In the meantime, President Trump is looking ahead to his next face-off with Joe Biden just over a week away. Despite his COVID-19 diagnosis, the president says he is ready and able to participate in this town hall-style debate next Thursday in Miami as scheduled. Because of COVID-19 concerns, ticketing for the event is very limited. Top military leaders are in self-quarantine after the Coast Guard's second-in-command tested positive. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, is among those in quarantine. The Pentagon says there are no signs of symptoms among any of the Pentagon contacts. Here's what's happening right now. The White House says it has completed, quote, all contact tracing for positive COVID-19 cases identified at the White House. It also laid out updated guidelines for mask wearing and testing in the West Wing. It comes after the president, First Lady, and several top aides, including Hope Hicks, Senior Advisor Stephen Miller, and the press secretary, who all tested positive for COVID-19 since Thursday. Coming up, the latest on stimulus money and what officials say about the economy. But first, we have a World War II veteran who celebrated quite the milestone. Up next, hear his story of service and who showed up to honor him in tonight's MVP.
Over the next few days, our temperatures are going to be very warm. 85 tomorrow, a summer-like day on your Wednesday, and then mostly sunny as we continue that warm trend through the weekend. I'm tracking that 8-day forecast, and we'll take a look at California, too, coming up.
World War II veteran celebrated quite the milestone this weekend, and he didn't do it alone. In tonight's MVP, I share Ed McComb's story of service and how decades later, people showed up to honor him.
So I just want him to feel that people are thinking about him.
What do you get someone who has seemingly seen it all?
Well, I don't know as a person who really feels their age.
Who asks for nothing.
Just thankful to be here.
Even on his day.
How old do you feel?
Probably 50. Till I start to move around.
Ed McComb says he doesn't need a gift.
To celebrate my dad's 100th birthday.
It's a pretty major celebration for Dad.
Yeah.
But before we get to his present,
I'm not used to having this much fuss done over me.
let's talk about his past.
I mean, everybody was getting called up. So.
A World War II veteran, Ed was drafted at 19 years old in 1942.
There was only one 4-story building standing in Tokyo when we went through.
He served in both the European and Pacific theaters and could reload a mortar faster than anyone in his platoon.
The mortar, you could set back to the hill here and shoot over it. The machine gun, you was sticking your head right up there, and they could see you as well as you could see them.
War didn't keep him from marrying his childhood sweetheart.
Didn't seem like the war was ever going to end, so we got married while I was in the service.
He and his wife, Carrie,
that was our wedding picture.
Lived a full life of love.
69 years. Makes me miss her. And she passed away in 2012.
That brings us back to this day, back to the present.
Since the virus, I thought, how can we celebrate Dad? And so people were starting to do the drive-bys. So.
Not many people know me, so it can't be a very long parade.
Think again.
I think it's important that the community come together when you have someone that's 100 years old and that has served for our country.
Strangers, friends, and other veterans showed up for this Saturday parade.
We're part of the color guard from the local VFW post 280 here in Columbia, and we like to honor veterans any way we can.
The celebration even included a proclamation.
Do hereby proclaim
making October 3rd Ed McComb Day. And for a moment, the parade paused.
Been so long since I saluted.
Yeah, I'm blown away by it. And I can't thank people enough for coming out and supporting them.
So it was just wonderful, and it was watching Dad's reaction. So it was great.
It turns out a birthday present that drives past is a gift
Breathtaking.
he's never seen.
Thank you for coming out, and they probably could all have been doing something that they'd rather do than to come out to see me.
Ed told me his advice for younger generations is to make sure you do your studying in high school and college. His secret to making it to 100, Ed says no smoking or drinking and good genes. His mother lived to 97. To nominate an MVP, go to our website, KOMU.com. Kenton.
Emily, thank you very much for that uplifting story for sure. We're going to start off in weather today by talking about some records, of course. California having a terrible wildfire season. And by terrible, I mean in 2018, it was their previous record where they burned about 1.6 to 1.7 million acres that wildfire season. Now in 2020, 2 years later, what the California Fire is saying, well over 4 million acres this season. One fire alone has burned over 1 million acres. They have about 24 wildfires still active right now that firefighters are battling. When we look at the smoke, you can see where all the smoke is from our satellites can see that. You can see that over in California. And this is actually what we've had today. We actually had a little bit of smoke come back overhead Missouri. You might have noticed a little bit of that haze in the sky if you were paying attention. Tomorrow and on our Thursday shouldn't be quite as bad. Here's tomorrow, and then here is on Thursday the projection of where that smoke is going. Could still see a little bit of it, but I still think you'll see that blue sky out there. Just might not be crystal clear. Hurricane Delta also continuing the record-breaking Atlantic hurricane season. We see a Category 4 there, has winds sustained at 130 miles per hour. It's going to make landfall as a Category 4 hurricane likely in the Yucatan Peninsula tonight and early tomorrow morning. Then it continuing to make a turn into the Gulf Coast, eventually making landfall somewhere between eastern Texas and the state of Louisiana as a major hurricane likely. We're really going to have to see how this system redevelops as it gets off of land. Once it gets through that Mexican Yucatan Peninsula, we'll see how that wants to redevelop over the Gulf of Mexico. Otherwise, then as it continues right on up, we're looking at a tropical storm here on Saturday, 7 p.m. And remember, Saturday morning is when the Tigers are taking on the Tigers of LSU, too, now here in Columbia, as Ben mentioned earlier, and that will continue right on up into the Ohio River Valley. If we look otherwise at the United States right now, a lot of clear sky out there tonight. We're going to hold on to that mostly sunny condition the next few days, but our temperatures are going to be 10 to 15 degrees above average for this time of year. Average high is 70, average low is 47, but our actual temperatures 85 tomorrow and then around 80 through the weekend. Low temperatures this weekend, only around 60 degrees. Very, very warm for this time of the year. More like a summer condition, especially tomorrow with a high temperature in the middle 80s. Now, I want to show you also where some of this cloud cover is going to go from Delta. So this is on Friday afternoon, ending our week. We're still going to be mostly sunny. Some cloud cover starting to get into our boot heel in southern Missouri, the southern quarter to a third of Missouri, while it's making landfall here, again, somewhere from Texas to Louisiana. And then as we head into our Saturday, again, game time here in Columbia, we're seeing that sunshine still, but Louisiana is drenched in rain and strong winds, hurricane force winds. And then once we head into our Sunday, we could finally get a bit of cloud cover from that. We'll keep you updated on if this wants to move any further north. Again, plenty of time for its direction to change, especially since it's going over land. It's going to make landfall there in Mexico and then go back into the warm ocean waters of the Gulf. 56 tonight for that low. Tomorrow morning, a warmer morning certainly than we were today, about 10 degrees warmer actually. The afternoon high temperature will also be about 10 degrees warmer with a high around 85. Then we're around 80 starting Thursday and continuing through the weekend. I want you to look at the end of this 8-day forecast because what you'll see is our temperatures going back down. So if you like the warmer weather, enjoy the next about 5-6 days because 7 and 8 days out, we're getting back down to more seasonal temperatures, which by this time next week means highs in the upper 60s. Emily.
Okay, thanks, Kenton. Coming up later in the newscast, ahead for us, a contentious debate over stimulus money in Washington. But first, here are your lottery numbers. Good luck. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is warning of potential economic fallout if the U.S. can't get the coronavirus under control. Powell also says there could be major economic consequences if a new stimulus bill isn't passed soon. He says if cases start to rise again, economic activity could slow down again, and the country needs to be ahead of it with help from medical experts. Hours after Powell made that announcement, President Trump said he would halt negotiations over a new stimulus package until after Election Day. The announcement came as a shock to lawmakers after days of negotiations between Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Mizzou football head coach Eli Drinkwitz has announced his starter for the quarterback position on Saturday. Who he picked next in sports.
Now from the Ford Sports Desk, KOMU 8 Sports.
It has taken a global pandemic and a Category 4 hurricane, but LSU will make its first ever trip to Faurot Field on Saturday. Due to Hurricane Delta and its expected impact on Louisiana this weekend, a university source tells me the Mizzou-LSU game scheduled for Saturday night in Baton Rouge will instead kick off at 11 a.m. here in Missouri at Faurot Field. And recall, LSU was not even on Mizzou's schedule until COVID-19 caused the SEC to switch to a 10-game conference-only schedule. When Mizzou takes the field on Saturday, they'll have a new starting quarterback. Head coach Eli Drinkwitz announced Tuesday that Connor Bazelak will take over for Sean Robinson and get the start against LSU. Robinson struggled in Saturday's loss at Tennessee, while Bazelak threw for over 200 yards and engineered Mizzou's only touchdown drive of the game.
I thought he handled the situation well. He got in. We moved the ball offensively. He moved the ball on third downs. He made good decisions in the pocket. There are some things that he missed and some things that he's got to improve on. But I just felt like he handled the situation well, and he gave us a chance.
I thought I managed the game well. Found the way to move the ball down the field, get some points, but there's a lot of missed opportunities that I should have had, and opportunities to put touchdowns on the board. So got to have those.
Columbia High School rivals have worked together to create a new day and new kickoff time for the Providence Bowl. Hickman and Rockbridge have moved their game from Friday, October 16th to Saturday, October 17th at noon. This is all because of a positive COVID-19 test in the Bruin football program that caused the cancellation of this week's Rockbridge game against Battle High School. The Bruins now have to navigate a lengthy road back to the field due to quarantining and contact tracing, so one Como school reached out to the other for help, and the call was answered.
Basically, in following our return to play protocols established by MSHA, we basically have our varsity group coming back to practice on October 15th. That's a Thursday, so that would be their first day back at practice. Facing that reality, I reached out to Jack Rubenstein over at Hickman, and to move it to Saturday, it gives us 2 days of practice. And that's not just to prepare to maybe a higher level. It's actually maybe a matter of safety as well. And so we were pleased that Hickman and Rockbridge were able to agree on pushing the game back to noon for all parties involved.
Rockbridge soccer team on the road at Jefferson City tonight. We start with some great defense by Rockbridge. Saved by Dylan Foote coming up right here as he tracks it and lays out. The Jays controlled play in the first half and had several chances. Here's another one. First off the post, and then Foote with another save to keep the game scoreless right there. Finally, the Jays break through in the second half. It's Breck McGrail. Off of the rebound, he buries it. Jays would add another goal and shut out the Bruins 2-0. The Chiefs are the first team in NFL history to start the season 4-0, 4 straight years. Andy Reid was a pretty good hire, wasn't he? The Chiefs are one of just 4 4-0 teams in the NFL after last night's win over New England. If there's one criticism of this team, even dating back to the Super Bowl run, it's that despite all of their talent, they just start slow. It happened again last night with the Chiefs scoring 20 of their 26 points in the second half.
We made plays when we had to make plays, and we can learn from this, and we've got to do better in a lot of areas. But it's tough to win in this league, and it's tough to beat the Patriots in any situation.
And that's sports.
Welcome back. Another look at your warm day tomorrow, starting off in the upper 50s here, and then warming to around 85 in the afternoon with a lot of sunshine expected on your Wednesday. Will remain with highs around 80 through the rest of the weekend. Lows around 60 this weekend. There is a cool down ahead. If you want the cooler fall weather back, we become more seasonal for this time of year. A week from tomorrow, by the end of that 8-day, next Wednesday, we're in the upper 60s for highs.
What does Jim Reek say? If you don't like it, just wait a few days?
Yeah, just wait a few days. Yeah. Wait a week.
Yeah, things will change.
Sweater weather last week, summer again this week, and then we're back to, just
right. And as if 2020 wasn't enough, now we're talking about changing football games and schedules.
Because of a hurricane.
Because of a hurricane.
The 10th hurricane to make landfall is going to happen this weekend, which is a record.
Wow.
9 was the previous record from 1916.
Wow.
And it's only October.
And you've got your eye on it.
Yep.
Keeping us updated. Okay, thanks for joining us tonight.
Have a good night.
On air, online, on Facebook and Twitter, on the News app, on the Weather app, and now on Roku. KOMU 8 News. Coverage you can count on.